In tonight's shocking episode of Beyond the Gates, everything changes in an instant. At a lavish party filled with laughter and celebration, Bill's sudden collapse sends shockwaves through the entire room. Was it a simple medical emergency, or is there something far more sinister at play? As Bill fights for his life, deep-seated betrayals, hidden secrets, and long-buried grudges come to light. Who will survive the fallout, and who will be left to pick up the pieces? Stay tuned to witness the moment that changes everything for the Dupree family. At a lavish party, the room was filled with sparkling lights reflecting off the elegant dresses and suits of the guests. The atmosphere was filled with laughter and casual conversations, but suddenly, everything changed. Bill, the man everyone admired and feared, suddenly collapsed onto the floor, clutching his chest, his face pale. The room fell silent in terror as people rushed to his side, but nothing could be done. They could only watch in horror. As the scene unfolded, those closest to Bill, the ones he had helped and hurt, stood frozen. Everything was happening so fast that they couldn't even prepare themselves mentally. Leslie, Bill's wife, looked on with deep concern, but inside, her anger was undeniable. She watched Bill lying unconscious before her, but the emotions swirling inside her were not just fear for his health. There was a sense of regret, a sense of irreversible damage. The decision she had made in the past now haunted her, as the man she had once loved was now possibly undone by the very secrets he kept. The truths she had been avoiding, the schemes she had ignored, the betrayals she had turned a blind eye to over the years, now came crashing down like a relentless wave. While Bill lay unconscious, Leslie felt as though she, too, was under attack by the truths she had long buried. She couldn't help but think of the times she had betrayed him, the moments when she had allowed herself to become entangled in complicated relationships. Every silence, every secret now felt like a ticking bomb, and she was the one who had triggered it. Anita, Leslie's sister, stood at a distance, observing, but her heart was filled with contempt. She had warned Leslie about Bill, reminded her that the man Leslie trusted could never truly do good for the family. And now, as she saw Bill collapse, Anita couldn't help but feel a small sense of satisfaction. Was this the price Bill had to pay for everything he had done in the past? Anita knew well that Bill's collapse could change everything, but she also recognized that some things could never go back. The decisions she had made in the past, the cruel words she had spoken, might now come to life. She couldn't even feel a shred of sympathy for Bill, only a sense of relief when thinking about the end of those dark relationships. Meanwhile, another important character at the party was Craig, Bill's longtime friend. Craig knew Bill's past all too well, the shady deals he had been involved in. But now, as he watched Bill lying motionless on the floor, Craig couldn't suppress the anger building inside him. The wrong choices Bill had made throughout his life, the lies he told to cover up the crimes he committed, had gone too far. But Craig's anger wasn't just about that. What he truly wanted was for Bill to acknowledge the mistakes he had made. Craig had once had a chance to expose everything, to bring Bill down, but he had chosen to let it slide. And now, as Bill lay there, Craig could no longer pretend to be indifferent. He had to decide, would he help Bill, or would he let him pay the price for everything he had done? But in the midst of the chaos, secrets began to emerge. A mysterious phone call from an unknown number made everything even more tense. Craig knew who was behind all the schemes Bill was facing. His relationship with Bill wasn't just friendship. They shared a dark past, a burden that both had carried for years. But now, Craig realized that his loyalty to Bill might have been the very thing that pushed everything to this breaking point. Everything now felt less like revenge and more like an internal battle that couldn't be denied. Craig faced the hardest decision of his life. Would he continue to protect the secrets Bill had hidden, or would he expose the truth and free himself? For Leslie, there was no more time to dwell on the past. She stood up, facing a decision she could no longer undo. Would she let Bill pay for his mistakes, or would she find a way to save him despite everything? The hesitation, the regret, and the anger surged within her. And now, with Bill lying there, she had to make her choice. The words and actions from the past suddenly carried a weight that could no longer be ignored. Everything had gone beyond her control. Meanwhile, Anita could only stand by and smile slyly. She had waited for this moment for so long. Now, with everyone around her struggling with their emotions, all she felt was power. Power to topple, to take the position she had always desired. The party had turned into a battlefield, where there was no room for forgiveness or mercy. One by one, the pieces of the Dupree family, the once perfect relationships, began to crack. The betrayal, the anger, and the difficult decisions would push everything to a boiling point. And when Bill woke up, would he still find the peace he once believed he deserved? As the chaos unfolded at the party, time seemed to freeze for everyone present. The air was thick with tension, and all eyes were on Bill, who lay motionless on the floor, his fate hanging in the balance. The once vibrant atmosphere had been replaced by a suffocating silence, broken only by the frantic sounds of people trying to revive him. Yet, even as paramedics rushed to his side, it wasn't just his life that was at stake. In that moment, the secrets of the Dupree family, carefully guarded for years, began to unravel with every passing second. Leslie, standing frozen at the edge of the crowd, could feel the weight of every decision she had ever made crashing down on her. Her hands trembled, a mix of fear and guilt coursing through her veins. She had spent years building a perfect life, a perfect facade, but now it all seemed meaningless. The man who had once been her pillar of strength, her partner, was now lying unconscious before her, and all she could think of were the moments when she had ignored the warning signs, when she had turned a blind eye to the lies and betrayals that had slowly seeped into their lives. How had it all come to this? But as Leslie's mind raced, she couldn't shake the thought that this wasn't just an accident. There had been something off about Bill's sudden collapse. The way he had looked at her earlier in the evening, the strange tension that had lingered between them, had all been signs she had ignored. Could someone have deliberately orchestrated this? Could the past sins of the Dupree family be coming back to haunt them in the most unforgiving way possible? Anita, Leslie's sister, watched from a distance, her eyes cold and calculating. She had always seen through Bill's charming exterior. She had always known there was something dark beneath the surface, something that Leslie had refused to acknowledge. And now, with Bill on the brink of death, Anita couldn't help but feel a strange sense of satisfaction. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the moment when the truth would finally come to light. But even as Anita stood there, her thoughts were clouded with a mixture of guilt and anticipation. She had always felt overshadowed by Leslie, the perfect daughter, the perfect wife. But now, with Leslie's world crumbling, Anita saw an opportunity to step into the light, to take control of a situation that had long been out of her grasp. The power that Bill had wielded, the influence he had over the family, was slipping through their fingers. And with it, so was Leslie's grip on everything she had worked so hard to build. Craig, who had been standing near the edge of the room, suddenly moved forward, his face a mask of indifference. But underneath that calm exterior was a storm of emotions. He had always been Bill's closest confidant, the man who had helped him rise to the top. But in recent years, things had changed. Craig had seen the cracks in Bill's armor, the compromises that were being made, and he had tried to distance himself from the chaos. But now, with Bill fighting for his life, Craig found himself caught in a web of conflicting emotions. Could he save Bill, the man who had been his friend for so long, or had their friendship been nothing more than a facade built on lies? The more Craig thought about it, the more he realized that he didn't know who Bill was anymore. The man he had once admired, the man he had trusted, had become someone else, someone driven by greed, power, and manipulation. Craig knew that Bill had made enemies, and not just outside the family. There were people within the Dupree household who had their own reasons to see him fall. And now, as the seconds ticked away, Craig realized that he was facing a choice he hadn't prepared for. Would he help Bill, or would he let the truth come out and allow the consequences of Bill's actions to unfold? Outside, the sirens of an approaching ambulance echoed through the night, and as the paramedics arrived, they rushed Bill to the hospital, their faces a mix of urgency and uncertainty. The rest of the guests at the party, still in shock, began to murmur among themselves, wondering if Bill would make it out alive. But even as they speculated, the damage had already been done. Whatever happened next, nothing would ever be the same. As the night wore on, the family gathered at the hospital, waiting for news. The tension was palpable, and each passing minute felt like an eternity. Leslie, her mind reeling from the events of the evening, couldn't shake the feeling that Bill's collapse was just the beginning of something much bigger. As much as she tried to focus on him, she couldn't help but feel the weight of the secrets she had been keeping, the ones that were slowly coming to the surface. Meanwhile, Anita stood by, watching her sister's unraveling world with a sense of quiet satisfaction. She had always been the one to stay in the shadows, but now, with Leslie's empire crumbling, Anita saw an opportunity to take control. She could feel the power shift, and with Bill's fate uncertain, the time had come to strike. Craig, still conflicted, stood in the corner, his mind racing. He knew that the Dupree family would never be the same after this night. No matter what happened to Bill, the damage had already been done. The lies, the betrayals, the broken promises, they were all starting to come to light, and there was no turning back. As the clock ticked on, the family's fate hung in the balance. Would Bill survive, or would his collapse mark the beginning of the end for the Dupree family? The decisions made in the next few hours would determine everything. And as the night wore on, one thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same again.